In our last session, we got our server theoretically up and running. It's probably right. I've coded this a bunch of times, but there might be an error issue there. We don't know. We don't know until we get the chance to test it. And we didn't get to test it because we have to have a client to make this happen. If you remember, when we run this code, it's going to get hung up and stop on this line right here, line 21. How do we know that? We don't know that actually at this point. We haven't done anything to help us know that. And we'll actually add that here in a second, a little bit of debugging to see what's happening so we know what's happening behind the scenes. But we wanted to keep it simple to start with. Well, I want to show you these advanced techniques as we go as well. So let's get our client up and running. So new Java class over here. You right-clicked over here on the folder, new Java class. That's going to create the Java class in that folder. It's going to have us up and ready to go. And so the class here will be the client. Just simple enough. We probably can get a fancier name to it at some point, but it's our client class. Now, we need a main method here, so we can do public static void main. We need a string array, which is the arguments going in, and that gives us our main class right there. And so now for the client, we don't need a server socket. We're not trying to be a server. We're not listening for phone calls. We're making a phone call. So we jump straight to a socket. So we can just create a new socket out there. And inside of here, I can create a new socket, basic, and then connect later on, or I can create the connection right away. It doesn't matter which one I want to do, or I can actually do straight to a specific host. So you saw one example in the code that was shown in the demo instead of the lecture. And so I'm going to show you a different one in this demo here. So I'm going to go to localhost, and I need to go to the same port number as I had before. Now, in the code we saw in the lecture, I used port 55. So let me show you here what happens if we try and run it on the wrong port. By the way, notice something here. Again, the code doesn't compile. We are still dealing with exceptions. We still have to manage these exceptions. And so I have to do the same thing I did before, Alt-Enter, and then throw the IO exception. Or I could just have typed up here, throws IO exception. Just save me some typing there if I need to. All right, so if I go and run this code, one line of code, go run one line of code, I'm going to get a failure. Ooh, look at that. Address already in use. Well, that's because I ran the server. This is the error that we saw before, if you remember in the last video, address already in use, because I hit the run button. The run button only works for one at a time, and that guy, by the way, is still running. If I look over here at SocketFun, it's still waiting for a client to come in. So I need to be careful now. I need to come to my client and right-click this and say run file, because remember I have two applications. The run button doesn't run the one you're looking at. The run button runs the main application within NetBeans. So I hit this run. Now I get connection refused, connect. It's because there's no application out there listening on port 55. It went out there, there's nobody there, it refused the connection. So if I change this to match the server port, which was 67, we should see something interesting happening here. So let's do 67. Save that, Control S. Run. Oh, again, address already in use. I forgot. Run. File. All right, so this one worked. Build successful. This line of code connected. Without the wrong either IP address or port, it did not work. With the right ones, it does work. And if I go back to here, look, I got a error, connection reset. This one finally had somebody come in, connection reset, because it went through, it accepted the connection, it was expecting to receive some information, it never got it, and the connection hung up. It's like I pick up the phone, say, hello, how can I help you? And then somebody hung up on me. That's what happened essentially over here. But now we can see our two applications connected. So let's throw in a little bit just to help us. Go back to our server here for a moment. System.out.println, starting up. All right, I'm going to put this line here. I'm going to copy and paste this, and I'm going to say, got a connection. And it's going to do the work from there. So now when I go and hit the run, you can see I'm starting up. So I've stuck on one of these two lines. You can take my word for it. It's the second line, or you could put another print line between these two if you want to. You can see this guy's starting up. We go to our client over here. Now let's add some more code. So for the socket, once we have the socket, we need to write something. So we can do a print writer, Control space, that gives us the up here gives us the import. Out is equal to a new print writer, Control space. we can connect to a file, or we can connect to an output stream. That's what we want. Socket.get output stream. So from the socket, we don't need to go through the extra hop here. The print writer is perfectly fine writing to ones and zeros, so we're good to go. All right. So for the print writer, we got an out, and now our function is to write something. So out.println, and we will print a hello server, and then we're finished, so we can do socket.close. So we're writing 3 more lines of code to go off and test. So again, we need to have our server running, which we did. We started up, it's still running, it's still waiting. I go to our client, I right click here, I say run file, and the client ran successfully. I don't have any print lines here, so I don't know what it did, but it ran successfully, which means it ran through all the lines of code. And the server, starting up, it got a connection and it built successfully, but didn't print anything. So why didn't it print anything? What happened there? Okay, so we got a connection, which means we got down to this line of code. It didn't die like it did last time, which means I did something with it, which is I created an out stream. I connected the 2 streams. I said I was sending something, but I didn't receive anything. I have a read line here, so if it sent something, it would have received something, right? And that would have printed it out and wait for the next line. So both of them ended happy, but I didn't receive anything. So what happened? What went through here? Well, if you remember back to the lecture, there's an important thing that anytime you want to send a message, after you do that, just like anytime you go potty, you gotta flush. So it's not the kindest remembrance, but it's hopefully a poignant one. Anytime you put your business into the stream, you have to flush it. And so now when I put the flush inside of there, Control S, save that. I can go run my server again using my run button. You see starting up again. I can go right click here and say run file to run my client. And now it's successful over here. Go back to the socket. Look at that. Hello server. Just to prove what we have going on here, I can do as many of these as I want to. Out.println, many things to say. I can run the server again. Remember, I got to run both of them. Run the server, go here, run the client again. And hello server, many things to say. So the server just keeps getting stuff from the client until we're all finished. So now we've tested our client. We've tested our server, and we've established the fact that we can make sockets talk back and forth. We're just doing plain text here, and we're only doing one way, but this is a huge evolutionary leap. So if you are pretty new to coding, if this is your first experience coding and you've taken a couple classes but you're still learning, then you absolutely should be building this application. If you watched this whole video and you haven't put any fingers to code yet, then go back and rewatch it and build exactly what we're building here. Follow line by line. Go through and make this work. It looks like it's really simple, particularly when I'm getting everything right the first time, using Code Complete and everything, but you need to train your fingers to make this happen. You need to train your brain to recognize what this looks like. You need to practice it to make it feel correctly. So even building these little, it's 30 lines of code on each one of them, of which we only really wrote maybe 10. That's the muscle memory you need to develop as a coder. And you need to do it with your own hands and make these simple things happening. This is not history. This is not an English class. You can read something and kind of remember it and go from there. This is something you need to be able to produce and feel in your gut. So I want to play with this some more. We're not finished here, but this is a really good start to what we have going. I just want to encourage you, if you've gotten through these two, to go back and make these two happen. Write these two on your own and make it work on your own, and then we're going to get more advanced. We're going to actually have them talk back and forth, and then we're going to continue to get more advanced and go from there. So go back and play with it, and then continue on to the next video.